Hello everyone, and welcome to the Sunday edition of A Proud Malcontent. I'm Pete Bell, and I am a proud malcontent. Shortly, I'll be introducing today's guest, first guest we've had on the show, a statistician, Stephen Duncan, and he'll be helping me with some number crunching on looking at support for independence. Because when it comes to crunching the numbers, that is definitely not my forte. So we're very fortunate to have Stephen Duncan coming along to help us with that. First of all, I want to say a few words about the SNP conference agenda. As you may be aware, the provisional agenda was published just the other day. I think it was Friday. The provisional agenda was published. And surprise, surprise, there are no resolutions on the constitutional issue other than the leadership resolution, John Swinney's resolution, which might as well just say we're just going to keep on doing the same as we've been doing for the last 11 years and totally failing to achieve anything. But the fact that it hasn't achieved anything doesn't seem to disqualify it as a strategy as far as the SNP leadership is concerned. Which might strike those of us outside as odd, but within the SNP that seems to be perfectly okay. The there were two resolutions that I'm aware of. The Tweeddale resolution, which was spoken about by Graham McCormick. He's been kind of a spokesperson for that. And of course, the Newington resolution, which was the really radical one, which derives from the same thinking as went into the Scottish UDI plan. It now seems to me, from what I can make out, and this is just an impression that I've got, conversations that I've had, and my impression is that the Newington resolution now stands no chance whatsoever of getting on the agenda. I mean, it was always a very slim chance anyway, but it now looks like it's absolutely no chance whatsoever. The Tweeddale resolution, which, again, as you probably know, I don't think is actually all that helpful. It does still stand a chance. There is a certain amount of weight behind it. Of course, the SNP leadership are quite capable of ignoring that weight, quite capable. But there is that weight, so there is a possibility that the Tweeddale resolution will get on the agenda. That's if the leadership doesn't decide that it should be lumped in as a composite resolution, which will effectively kill it in favour of Swinney's resolution. But even though the strategy itself, I feel, is of no use to us, at least there is the fact that it will be a competing resolution, and there would still then be the possibility of the leadership resolutions, the Swinney resolution, being voted down in favour of the Tweeddale resolution. That would be a defeat for the leadership, and that in itself would be significant. I'll say no more than that. We await developments, as they say. It could be another, I think, 5 or 6 weeks before the final agenda for conference is published. So we await developments with interest. I do know that the Tweeddale resolution is still being pushed. I do know that Mike Wallace is still working very hard on the Newington resolution, but we'll have to wait and see on that. For the moment, we are going to be joined by my guest, the first ever guest on the show, and it's Stephen Duncan, a statistician. Hello, Stephen.
Hello, Peter. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. I try to avoid saying good morning because when this is recorded as a podcast, people could be watching it at any time. I really don't think that that's important. So, do you want to introduce yourself? Say a wee bit about yourself so people will know who you are.
Sure. Well, as you said, my name's Stephen Duncan. I've been, I guess, a statistician or statistical analyst for most of my adult life. Worked in industry and in finance for about 35, 40 years. I'm now retired. Also, the background is also in economics. I'm an economist. And I've been now and again a computer programmer off and on for the last 40 odd years, 45 years. So that's my background, and I have an interest in independence, as you know, as all your viewers do as well. So that's it in summary. I live in Edinburgh, and this is where I've lived most of my life. Although I'm not from here, originally from the West Highlands of Scotland, a place called Mallock at the end of the line. You've probably heard of. So that's it in a nutshell.
Can I ask, Stephen, have you ever been a member of any political party?
Yes, I've always been in favour of independence, but I never joined a party until 2015 after the tsunami election. So I joined the SNP, and I was a member for 5 years until I realised that things weren't the way they should be, and left that party. I then joined the Alpha Party, which I'm still a member of, very much a passive member. And, they've been somewhat of a disappointment, I have to admit. I'm still signed up to them, at least for the next 9 months. But I'm not a great believer in their strategy. It's likely I'll be an independent in 12 months' time.
Yeah, that's getting to be a big club. Right, so what is it we're going to be talking about today, Stephen?
Well, it's this little section in your show, which I think you're calling Confute Corner, whereby essentially I'm intending looking at the opinion polls and looking at some of the misinterpretations and some of the falsehoods and some of the that have been made, or claims that have been made from some of the polls that have been sort of published over the last 10 years or more, and sort of views that have taken hold and have just been sort of stated as fact, when in fact, that might not necessarily be the case. So the idea will be to take a look at some of these claims, examine them, and just check them against available evidence and see whether they stand up against that. And then where they don't, just call them out as, being the falsehoods or the misinterpretations or the myths that they are. So today is the first one of these. So,
and specifically today, we're looking at claims that that support for independence has been over 50% for the last 3 or 4 years.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, basically that's correct. There's a lot of very, sort of flippant comment made along these lines, and you pretty much paraphrased all these sorts of comments exactly. So I'm going to look at that information over time to see, to try and reveal what should be an obvious truth, in my opinion.
Right, and you've prepared some slides for us.
That's right. Yes.
This may be slightly clumsy, as I'm in charge of pressing the buttons here with my shaky hands. So we'll go over to the slideshow now, and you just give me a verbal cue when you want to change the slide. Okay, it's over to you then, Stephen.
Okay, so I think I've introduced what this is about. It's about taking some of these claims and checking them, the fact versus the myth and the falsehood. So if we could maybe click on, Pete, to the next sort of the first slide, is proper, as it were. Okay, so there's the claim there, sort of paraphrased. Opinion polling consistently shows majority support in favour of Scottish independence, and really that's just a composite summary of some very specific quotes, some examples which I've put down below, and I've sourced them. You'll be familiar with this sort of thing, or some viewers should be. So I'll just read out a couple of them. For over a year now, every single commission poll on Scottish independence has been showing that for more than 50% of Scots are now in favour of independence. So, and that was in March of last year. And then as we go down to down through them, so the very last comment is quite a recent one. Every opinion poll for the past 3 years has shown independence, yes, ahead of no. So that's the kind of very bold statements that are being made in various places. So let's maybe have a look and see whether how that stands up against the actual opinion polls that have been published. So we can move on to the next slide, Peter. Right. So just go through this chart a bit slowly here. So all these opinion polls ask the same question, should Scotland be an independent country? And that's the same question, was asked in the referendum of 2014, and all the opinion polls running up to that referendum as well. So there's 3 bars on this chart. The yellow bars are all the polls that have been published, and they're put into calendar years. I've just summarized them that way. So that's the yellow bars. There's the large ones. The pink or magenta color are the ones where yes have a lead or a plurality of the support, and the green ones are the ones where yes has a total majority of all the views expressed in these particular surveys. So I should just say that when I'm saying that yes have a lead, that's amongst those people who have actually expressed a view. So it's excluding those that are undecided or those that refuse to answer the question or state what their opinion was. Whereas the green bars refer to a majority, including all the don't knows and those that refuse to answer. So straight away, you should be able to see that, up until about 2020, it's very rare to see a yes lead. There's a handful in 2014, again in 2015, but really nothing until we get to 2020 of any particular note. Of course, 2020 to 21, that's the COVID years. So that's, I think, pretty much know why the lead there was such a continuous lead for yes for about 18 months of that 2-year period. And that's because the First Minister Nicola Sturgeon was on television every day at lunchtime, presenting the updates on the pandemic. So and there was also this perception that perhaps the Scottish government was performing better than the UK government at that time. So independence did seem to be the sort of favoured option over that period. Just stop me, by the way, Peter, if there's any questions you wish to ask on this stuff. Also we had the Brexit had actually happened by the time, or was just about to happen at the beginning of 21. 2020 was when the implementation period happened. So there's probably some reaction to that as well. But what we're really interested in is that bit that I've circled in red, with the dotted lines around, because that's where the comments relate to. They relate to the last few years of, where independence is, where the claims are that independence has been almost the settled will of the Scottish people, i.e. every opinion poll sort of indicating that yes was in the lead, or was the majority view in the country. So if we can maybe home in on that by looking at the next slide. If you can click on to the next slide. Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is looking at all the opinion polls from the beginning of 2022 to date. So exactly the same as the ones that were on the previous chart. It's just homing in on these ones. So what I've done is overlaid the quotes that I showed at the beginning onto that chart, and you can see they do look a little bit daft compared to the reality of the situation. So take a look at the first one, 6th of March 2024. For over a year now, every single commission poll on Scottish independence has been showing more than 50% of Scots are now in favour of independence. Well, in reality, now remember these bar charts are calendarised, and we're looking at a period that crosses 2 years here between March 23 and March 24. Only 9 of the 40 polls that were carried out over that period of time have yes in the lead, and only 4 of these, so less than half of these, have an overall majority. Over 50% of all those in the sample said yes, we're in favour of independence. And pretty much to say that's the same picture for every single one of these quotations. I think the last one is it's somewhat ironic when it says the first red herring. Every opinion poll for the past 3 years has had yes ahead of no. In reality, that's not the case. Even this year, alone, there have been 10 polls. Only half of them have yes in the lead, and 3 of these have a majority. So already that is not reflective of the reality. You don't have to take a look at the last 3 years; just have to take a look at the last 6 months, and you can see that comment doesn't stand up to scrutiny. So maybe the next slide, Peter. If we could move on. Oh yeah, that's it. Thanks. Yeah, so probably a more obvious falsehood you couldn't really hope to find in this case. Easily debunked claim. Been 114 surveys since in the last 3.5 years. 29, so that's about a quarter, are showing a yes lead, and less than half of these have a majority. So it's nothing like in the last 3 years all the opinion polls had showed a yes sort of lead. And the reason why this is a bit disturbing is that obviously if we don't know where we're starting from, or if we lie to ourselves about where we're starting from, how on earth are we expected to monitor progress, to track how far we've come once we get into a campaign properly? Assuming there ever is a campaign for independence and proper independence, that is, we can't possibly, we won't be able to know whether we're making any steps forward or whereabouts we are on that particular on how effective our campaign is at any point in time. The other thing is just I find equally important is that if you make these outlandish and rather daft claims, and it undermines your credibility, and not just for the person or persons making these comments, but for the whole independence movement, because we have to live these down, and we have to explain these away in our day-to-day conversations with people. And why would anybody want to believe what you've got to say on any other matters when you make these rather unsubstantiated assertions. And also, I think finally it generates a false sense of superiority. You get complacent. We're in the lead. It's in the bag. We don't have to really make much of an effort. And independence is really just around the corner. So that's my views on this particular claim. I don't think it stands up. And what I found astonishing is that when people make these claims, nobody really seems to say that's not true. That's not right. Stop doing that. It undermines us. So this is the first opportunity to actually say that publicly. So so thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Thanks for that, Stephen. That seems quite clear now, and for all the reasons that you give, it's very important. I'm particularly concerned with this point about properly identifying the starting point. But before going to talk about that, can you perhaps, did you get any sense of the reason for these falsehoods being stated? You quoted from several blogs, I think, but those were just a fairly random selection of the typical quotes. I'm sure we've all seen that said in various places, social media, blogs, whatever. Do you get any sense of the reason, the purpose, why these claims are made? Do you get any sense that the people making the claims are aware that they're false?
Yeah, I know that they're aware that they're false because I've pointed it out directly. And it's just been ignored or dismissed. I haven't had any support, I have to say, when I've gone back, surprisingly, because I've quoted all the sources, which are widely available publicly. All that information that I've just provided there can either be seen captured on Wikipedia, which summarizes all the information, or you can go directly to the pollsters' own websites and double check that from the source. I believe it's a combination, I think, of electioneering and wishful thinking. I think the wishful thinking aspect, and the reason why people don't challenge it, is that they want it to be so. They want it to be the way it's been described to them. And persons making these claims must know it's not true. It's been pointed out. But it's almost as if people think, well, okay, it's in the absence of a process, in the absence of a deadline for getting to independence, all that's left is hope. And that's what people are clinging to, hope and faith and trust, and they're going to be let down.
Yeah, that is a concern that I share, that the disappointment, when people actually discover the reality, that the disappointment alone is enough to crush enthusiasm. We've had so much disappointment over the past 10, 11 years. And I really believe that this is having a dire effect. And I very much take your point about the wishful thinking. There's a lot of fantasy politics going on. There's a lot of people talking about things as if they were possible, as if they were realistic, and they're really just not. There's a lot of it. And the thing you've probably found is that if you start to point out the reality of the situation, just as you're pointing out the falseness of the claims of a yes majority, the word that's used all the time is negative. Why are you being so negative?
Yeah.
As if being negative, being positive, regardless of the facts, is somehow a good thing. Denying the facts, ignoring the facts, and being positive and upbeat despite the actual reality of the situation, as if that's all that matters. Have you found that?
Oh yeah, definitely. When most of the apart from your blog, I have to say, pretty much apart from your blog, that's the summation. Summary of it's just a happy clappy 2014. Here we go again. I would say probably your blog, and possibly prior to his demise last year, Ian Lawson. His blog was most definitely the one I would read. These were your blog and his blog were the ones that were based in reality, I'd say, and everything else is just Wings as well. All right, they have their foibles, Wings, but essentially they're very good at their forensics and backing stuff up with inarguable evidence. It's all sourced. Don't necessarily agree with everything, but who agrees with everybody on everything? Anyway, but I think there is a lot of just this, it's just wishful thinking. I can't think of the other term for it.
The curious thing also that I find is that most of the blogs that you're talking about, I think Wings over Scotland in particular, they are, I think we could probably safely call them anti-SNP, or they have a very negative, there's that word again, very negative attitude to the SNP. But it seems to me that the only ones who benefit from these falsehoods are the SNP, because the SNP are the ones who come out with things like Alan Smith and his idiotic never been closer to independence, and this has been the theme all along the last 11 years until recently, when it's changed slightly. The focus has become more on the way that Westminster is obstructing our right of self-determination. But prior to that, it's the SNP that has been trying to give the impression that the Yes campaign is actually succeeding. We're doing a great job here. Trust us, have faith in us. So it's a curious thing that it's these anti-SNP blogs and bloggers who are actually supporting this false impression that only serves the SNP's purposes. It seems a bit curious.
Yes, and also I think they're also supportive of the de facto referendum or plebiscite election approach as well to next year's election. I think there seems to be a common theme as well amongst Wings are supportive of that, I believe, and some of the other websites are as well. Just call it a de facto referendum, and it will be one.
Yeah, of course, we know that we know now that with the Tweeddale resolution, supported by, I believe, 43 branches, it may be more by now. We know that there's a certain, and we're kind of drifting off the subject here, but this is a conversation, so we're allowed. We know that there is, even inside the SNP, within the party, there is a lot of support for this idea of the de facto referendum on independence, and also has to be said, to give Mike Wallace his due, there is that one branch, Newington and Southside branch, which is supportive of the idea of making it a de facto referendum on the powers of the Scottish Parliament over constitutional affairs. But there's others. This is within the SNP. In the wider movement, there's far more, a much bigger proportion of the independence movement. Now, you know that I don't think a de facto referendum on independence will actually work. But there is all that support there. And yet, we look at the leadership resolution, the only one that's got onto the SNP agenda, and it's the complete opposite. It is all explicitly about a Section 30 referendum, asking, requesting, demanding a Section 30 order. It seems somewhat incredible that the SNP leadership can be oblivious to all this campaigning for a de facto referendum. It may be that they're oblivious to the whole concept of a de facto referendum on powers over the Constitution, but how can they possibly be oblivious to the amount of support there is for a de facto referendum on independence? There was a brief spell when the SNP leadership themselves supported that. Do you have any explanation for this? How can they be so oblivious?
My own thought is that they're thinking, whilst there's wide support in the independent, some support in the SNP, there's wide support within the wider support within the independence referendum, in the independence movement for that de facto referendum. Then their thinking will be that the electorate itself, the independence supporting electorate, if you like, so it's wider again than the movement, much wider. They're not switched on as you or I, or SNP membership, or ALPA members, or the independence movement, the campaigners, the activists. Nothing like it. But they'll just by default vote SNP in the same way that the Scottish populace voted Labour from 1945 right up until 2015 without thinking about it, by and large. So I'm thinking that they feel that they don't have to do anything because they're going to get the votes to secure their re-election anyway. So so it doesn't matter what you as an SNP member thinks or you as an independent. We've got the dumb electorate, for want of a better expression. They're going to vote for us anyway. The same way as you used to put a red rosette on a donkey, they'd vote for that in the old days, and now in the new days, they vote for a donkey with a different rosette on it, the yellow one.
Yeah,
that must be what they're relying on. It must be that. It can't be anything else.
This is another aspect of the fantasy politics, and it's blocking out of reality. I think you'll correct me if I'm wrong on this, but all polling at the moment tells us that the SNP is at the very least going to be the largest party, and will almost certainly be the party of government again, and largely because what you were just talking about, what I describe as voter inertia, because the electorate does act like a dumb beast. It doesn't matter how smart all the individual voters are, the electorate as a whole behaves like a dumb beast. And there's this inertia. There's a difference between what us anoraks are aware of and what the general public is aware of. So part of this fantasy politics, and I'd like to know if you've noticed this yourself, is this denial that the SNP, because there's so much antipathy towards the SNP, people seem to be in denial of the fact that the SNP is still going to be there after the election next year. We have people actually fantasizing about some other party or parties suddenly rising and taking over from the SNP, and the SNP being eradicated. Now, the polling just makes a nonsense of that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it doesn't even. I mean, I suppose if you're you're talking about the smaller parties and ones that, the tiny parties, and then you've got this Liberate Scotland umbrella sort of group, which formed of, I think, 3 groups at the minute, which was the ISP, which has been around, I don't know, 5-6 years. Don't register. A group called Sovereignty, don't register. And then you've got this other amorphous group of individuals called Independence for I4I, Independence for Independence. And a few of them stood at last year's UK general election in 2014. Got nowhere.
Yeah, it just occurred. Sorry, Stephen. Sorry, but it just occurred to me that the Independence for Independence is itself an umbrella group,
Yes.
which is now under another umbrella. So it's an
Yes.
umbrella group within an umbrella group. Right. How's the dumb electorate going to make sense of that? Sorry to butt in
Agreed.
there.
No, you're right. It's just yeah. They mean well. They mean well, but I don't. I think we when the people they'll hacked off of what we are saying now, and so it's not personal. It's just not going to go anywhere, in my opinion. If you once, it's a usual thing when you ask what happens once you get people elected, even if you get, you talk about fantasy politics, get a majority of Liberate Scotland delegates elected. What you're going to do then? Well, the best I've heard is, we'll see. I've actually heard we'll see. And one of the guys on, I think I'll not see who it was, but it was on one of the podcasts that somebody said that, one of the from the 3 groups, and at least it was honest. But it's not. They're not. I can't see them achieving anything. I mean, last year the I4I group, I think, I don't know how many there were, 4 or 5 candidates maybe, and I think the best they achieved was, but in one seat, it was 2.5% maybe, and that was the local. It was Eva Comrie, who was quite popular locally, well known, 2.5%. So of the vote. So,
and that's not looking in the polling. That's not looking like changing much this time around. Right. That's but we're actually getting people believing this. This is what worries me. We get people believing this. This is the 2 fantasies here that we've identified. There's a fantasy about our actual starting point. That we already have that support, and there's this fantasy about how somehow the SNP is going to be taken out of the picture.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I had to point out, we have to know exactly what our starting point is. If it's a journey to independence, as it's often described, you cannot possibly plan a journey if you don't know where you're starting from.
Yeah.
And the other point, which is just gone totally out of my head, the other point is that the SNP, they are still, and I get so much stick for saying this, but it's only stating a fact. I'm just declining to join in the fantasy. The SNP is still going to be essential if anything is going to happen in the next Parliament to progress Scotland's cause. The SNP is going to be essential to that. So we have these groups on the one hand saying the SNP is never going to do anything for independence. They're never going to do anything about it. It's absolutely impossible to change them. They are the way they are. They'll even call them a unionist party. They're saying that on the one hand. And then on the other hand, they're saying, if you vote for us and we get a majority among these, we get a majority, then we will do this. We will progress. We will do something. Wait and see what it is, but we will do something. And they seem to be totally oblivious to the fact that majority that they're talking about for doing something, doing whatever about progressing Scotland, that majority must include the SNP.
Mm.
The SNP that they've said won't possibly ever change in order to support what it is they're trying to do. And the other point about this, and again, you will hopefully confirm this, it wouldn't matter, even supposing the SNP were reduced to 1 or 2 seats, they would still, those votes would still be required, because the chances of ever being the super majority are slim, vanishingly slim. Comments.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I think you're right. But even though, I mean, there's so many things to think about the super majority quote marks. It doesn't matter when you get a super majority of seats. Because what in the end, if you do believe in Scottish in Scottish sovereignty, claim of right, it's popular vote that counts. It's popular support. So if you manipulate the system, no matter how satisfying it might be to get rid of some unpopular SNP toppers, then it will be seen as that. And if you still only get 49% of the vote or 52% of the vote, there's still an awful big clump of people that are being ignored, even if you manage to get 3/4 of the seats in that unlikely event. When I say you manage to get, I mean, suppose genuinely pro-independence MSP, you still need the vote. You need the heft of the vote if you believe in democracy, particularly if you believe in what we're always talking about, which is Scottish popular sovereignty, where the people's votes count. So you need to get the bulk of the vote behind you. It's not just about a case of manipulating the system. But it's unlikely that you're going to achieve that anyway, because it's something we can look at maybe in another program in a bit more detail. But I think you can manipulate the system, but it relies somewhat on assumptions. So assumptions based on the latest opinion polling. So you have to assume certain things about what's going to happen to the constituency vote before you get the desired outcome in the list vote.
Can I just? We're looking for safe assumptions here. There are safe assumptions and unsafe assumptions. I think as a statistician, you'll be talking about safe assumptions.
It's got to be safe assumptions, I think. But it's. You take the. You just have to take a. I can only talk about in general terms. I haven't looked at it in real detail. But you have to, if you take an individual voter like myself, and let's say I had a genuine SNP candidate that you liked, and you knew they were supportive of independence and had a plan, and we're going to pursue it. And similarly, on the list, you had an ALPA party or an ISP party candidate. If you knew from local opinion polling, if such a thing existed, or you could carry out yourself and had the money to do so, and the time and the expertise, you could then establish whether you thought that candidate you were thinking of voting for in the constituency vote was definitely going to win. It was so far ahead, you could guarantee they were going to win almost. You can't guarantee anything, but you could almost guarantee. Then you could say, I'll split my vote. I'll take my vote and won't vote for the SNP on the list. I'll now vote for one of the others. Then I know that I'm going to win in both cases, as opposed to if the SNP candidate is only 1 or 2% ahead or 1 or 2% behind in the constituency vote in my local constituency, I might think, maybe I better vote SNP twice, because if he fails to win it on the seat in the constituency, at least I might get the party in on the list. So you almost have to know very well what's going to happen in the constituency before you cast your vote in the list. Now, it could be some of the polling saying that nationally polling, because we don't have local polling. If we have nationally, we know the SNP is well ahead, and that I think, okay, well, I'll vote there. I don't need to vote for the SNP. I vote for the SNP in the constituency. I'll vote for anybody else on the list, and I'll maximise my chances of getting my, the kind of people I want sitting in Holyrood. But you can't tell that for sure.
Yep. When you talk about it, you're talking about you.
Yes, that's right.
Doing these calculations.
Yes.
You're a statistician. Okay, there might be other statisticians out there. There might be other non-statisticians who are capable of making that kind of calculation. But we're talking here about that dumb electorate. There would need to be a minimum level, a minimum number of people, a minimum proportion of the electorate doing these calculations for this split and vote strategy to work. And the electorate being dumb, that seems highly unlikely to me. You see where I'm coming from on that?
It's highly unlikely. I mean, your screen froze there. That's why I was hesitating to talk. Yeah, I think what you have to rely on is the candidates doing that calculation and telling them this is the calculation. So vote for me on the constituency and vote for my supposed opponent on the list, or vote for the different party on the list. You'd almost have to have that, and they won't be able to do that because it's for a different. You can't advocate for a different party. I'm not even sure if it's legal, but it certainly would be. It might be seen as at least hypocritical if you were SNP advocating ALPA on the list.
Yeah,
there's things do that calculation for them. Could be done, but
the things that are not
practical.
They're not right. Whether they're actually illegal, whether it's actually illegal, it is almost certainly contrary to any party's constitution for it to for any member to advocate for another party. I know that was in the SNP constitution. I was a member of the SNP for many years, and I know that was in the. I would imagine it was the same for any party. And then with these umbrella groups, there's also the possibility of allegations of collusion. Two or more parties colluding to try and manipulate the outcome of the referendum. And I'm pretty sure that is illegal. One of these days, I'll maybe get a constitutional lawyer on the programme to address these issues. We still have, Stephen, about 10 minutes left, and there's been a few comments. So in the hopes of encouraging more comments, if you don't mind, I'm going to read out a few of them, and we'll maybe get some reaction from you to those. Kyle Renton, this was some time ago. He said, very pleased to see you all doing something. The SNP's current plan is nothing more than carrot dangling. Well, I think there will be a general agreement with that, other than among the SNP loyalists, of course. But this is the parties, and it's not just the SNP. I have to stress this: it's not just the SNP, but this is the politicians in general being totally focused on electioneering and not on Scotland's cause. Next comment, and Peter Craig is making sure that we hear him. He's shouting here. If the SNP lose the independence, then they will be finished for good by the people, being suckered by your own government for years. I think I see the point that Peter's trying to make here, and this is that if the SNP go into the election as they are now with the what John Swinney laughingly calls his strategy, his plan for independence, and we end up with another 5 years lost to add to by that time it will be 11 that have already been lost. Then come 2031 or come the next UK general election, I think that's it must be by I think it's August 2029. That's subject to confirmation. The electorate in Scotland is going to punish the SNP very, very severely. And well, to a certain extent, I like to think that's true. You would like to think that the electorate would, but again, we're talking about this a dumb electorate and the inertia where it takes that electorate time to catch up with the anoraks. So the stuff that we are talking about, the electorate is. I fall for this myself sometimes. I'm saying things online, and in my mind, I'm broadcasting this to the whole of Scotland. I'm not. I'm broadcasting it to maybe 100 people who actually tune in for this or who watch the podcast afterwards. And maybe 1,000 people reading a blog. We're not reaching them. We're not reaching them at all. What do you think the electorate are likely to punish the SNP?
Well, I would say that it took them 70 years to get around to punishing British Labour in Scotland. 1945 to 2015 it took them a long time to suss that one out.
Yeah, I didn't think the electorate were quite that dumb.
But so I mean, I think there's unhappiness, but I mean, where's the unhappiness from? It's from people that are switched on to this stuff, And
the point, I think, Stephen, is that it is not a safe assumption to assume that the electorate are going to severely punish the SNP next year. Is far from being a safe assumption. And there's also the fact that even if the electorate do punish the SNP next year and punish them quite severely, however many SNP MSPs there are, they are going to be essential to any moves to progress Scotland's cause. So we cannot write off the SNP.
No. I think you should really think of the SNP, I think, as almost as how frustrating it is as placeholders. They're a great big placeholder. What's wrong is that the people sitting in these places at the moment are the wrong people. Your John Swinney, he's not the right person to be leading the SNP. He's not the right person to be in that position. He's not a leader. He's, at best, he's a manager, and he's not a very good manager. And there's a whole lot of people around him at the top of the SNP like that. And that's where the frustration comes from, the anger comes from. It annoys me. Then I have to let my rational side come back over and say, well, wait, we just need to get rid of them. I do actually think we do need to get rid of the leadership. You change the leadership by making them change their policy, change their direction, change their attitudes. I think that's going to be really almost impossible with the likes of Swinney. Yeah. Almost impossible. I
have to stress that as impossible as it seems, it is the only thing that we can do for 2026. We're not going to get rid of the SNP. We're not going to get rid of the SNP leadership. Therefore, with the rational head on, changing the policy, changing the strategy is the only thing that we can even hope to do, even if it's not a very realistic hope.
It's so late in the day, I agree.
And getting a less and less realistic hope as time goes on. Another comment, Paul Carpentier, he says, "Hi, there is no purpose to achieve anything, I thought, but just getting a majority for a manifesto for independence. Being elected is not the point." Sorry, Paul, I'm not quite making any sense of that. No, we'll move on. There's another comment here, Derek Kerr, who says, "Sobering truths, gents, paints a sobering picture of the job at hand. Doesn't matter where we are starting from, the job still needs to be done. We need to know what that starting point really is, though." And absolutely, we need to know that starting point, and we need to have a plan for the journey. And here we are sitting, barely 9 months out from the start of the election campaign. And we have this totally false idea of our starting point and no plan for progressing Scotland's cause. And that has to be a concern. Is this right? That's Derek. Is Paul Carpentier again? There is no need to figure out. Sorry. There's no need to figure out who's going to be elected or not. When the vote is done, it is done, and there is nothing to be done afterwards. All attempts will be discarded. If that is UDI on the map, nobody should care about who from any independence party is elected or not. If one vote for any indie party counts against UDI, a 50% threshold, in addition to a majority of indie seats, what would we care about what is said? If we want that, I think it's meant to be vote to be a hidden referendum, we don't care about policy. Independence is not about policy. I see where Paul's coming from on this. The policy agenda is a separate thing completely from the constitutional issue, and that's something I've been trying to stress for a long time now. The constitutional issues should be dealt with in isolation. I don't know if you agree with that, Stephen.
Oh yeah, it's the thing that's overarching. I mean, you can't enact any of your policies without independence. You can't enact them fully and properly. Whatever your policies are, whether I agree with these policies or not, doesn't matter. If in an independent Scotland, if you're able to get elected, you'll be able to enact your policies in full, and just the way Westminster does for the UK as a whole at the moment, it's got no constraints on it. And that would be how it would happen in Scotland, albeit we'd hopefully be a little bit more democratic, have a little bit a better more of a PR system of electing governments. But that would be up to us to even making that decision would be up to us in an independent Scotland to decide. At the moment, our hands are tied, and your policies they just sit underneath independence. Yeah. They're almost not relevant.
Well, we're into the last couple of minutes of the program, Stephen. So just time for me to thank you for coming along today. It's been an interesting conversation, and your points on the reality of the situation as regards support for independence are very well made. And at some point, I'm going to have to talk about the implications of that. But and there are serious implications for that. But at the moment, I'd just like to thank you, and perhaps you'll join us again for another Conflate Corner on another Sunday.
Will do. No problem, Peter.
I would enjoy that. Thanks again, Stephen.
Thank you.
And like I say, that's almost out of time. I've only a couple of minutes to go. Just time for me to remind you that I'm back here on Wednesday afternoon from 2 until 3 on a Wednesday afternoon. Exactly what we'll be doing then, I have no idea. Like most days, today was actually the first show, the first program that's actually been even vaguely planned, and that was only because Stephen was involved and doing most of the planning. So I'm very grateful to him. Once again, let me remind you that we can take live comments during the program, as we've just discovered. And also, you can email comments or questions to proudmalcontent@peterabell.scot. That's proudmalcontent@peterabell.scot. And peterabell.scot is the web address for my blog, if you would like to read that, because I usually follow up there on some of the topics that we're covering in these podcasts. For the moment, it's just time for me to thank you for joining us. I believe it's been an interesting program, and I hope to see some feedback from you. For just now, Goodbye.